We're on. Good evening. Welcome to the September 27th Timberlane Budget Committee meeting. Sarah, could you please call the roll?
Sure. Should I stand?
No, you don't.
Peter Velo,
Peter's absent.
Brian Boyle,
Here.
Alan David,
Here.
David Gurns,
Here.
Kathleen Gorman,
Here.
Julie Hammond,
Here.
John Hughes,
Here.
Michael Mascola,
Here.
Todd McCormick,
Here.
Phil Sherwood.
Here.
Excellent. And I'll go, Todd, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next item on our list is the approval of the September 13 meeting minutes. They were posted ahead of time, so take a minute or two to look at them, and then I'll ask if there's any questions or any changes. And I have one for you. Sarah, here's what I'm going to make a suggestion, because I know you mentioned you're going to get a template, right, to do it, but, so one would be put page numbers on the documents.
Sure.
So on page 2, at the bottom where it says reports of committees, at 7:37 PM, it lists all the people who attended the training, but David Gurns is missing. His name should be added to the list of people who attended. Kathy, go ahead.
I just have a general comment. It does not have to be corrected for these minutes, but it's Ms. Gorman. It's not Mrs. or C. Gorman or Gorman, but I'm not Mrs. Gorman, okay?
And the other one I want to ask this board about, so these meeting minutes were done by Tom, and so they're a little bit more descriptive, wordy, and so it's just a suggestion. Do you want them to be this wordy? Do you want them to be shortened? You know, just meaning like, we talked about this topic, and then they always put the timestamps in the meeting minutes, so you can always go to Vimeo and look at it. What this does is it helps the person who's, or Sarah, from trying to get every single thing we're doing. You know, so obviously we'll record the motions. We don't have to write down, you know, Phil said this and Todd said that, unless it's really more of a motion. Thoughts? Go ahead.
I would just go with whatever you're comfortable with. I like the detail. I know my town does that detail, but I know a lot of people watch also and will go to the Vimeo.
Okay.
So I would go with whatever's makes you comfortable and what you can
You can
keep
kind
up
of
with.
almost set your own standard.
I would say the difference for me is if, for whatever reason, we're unable to record, that an extra efforts to capture a little more detail and get a little more granular, but in most cases, we're going to be recorded, best I can tell.
Anybody else have any comments or suggestions?
I make a motion, we accept the minutes as amended.
Okay, second? So I got a first by David and a second by Todd. All those in favor? Just hold your hands up so she can count. Get those, and then all those opposed and abstentions. You all set? Mm-hmm. Correspondence folder is going around once David passes it off. Make sure Brian gets it, because I think you skipped over there. Delegations of and individuals, we don't have any. Budget chair update, I really don't have a lot. I just want to do one thing, just for some clarity, this is my suggestion. Just to avoid confusion, if we're sending out emails outside of this group, and we're a budget committee member, we gotta be careful. If we send, like, for instance, if we send an email off to another committee, we should have one voice that comes out of the budget committee. And it should come out of the chair. So if we're all thinking something, the chair will put together the message, and for instance, I'll send it off to the school board. It doesn't mean anybody here can't reach out to another committee. Just we gotta be careful if we send out a thing and an email, and we sign it as a budget committee member, they may be looking at it as, is this from the budget committee, when it's really one individual? That's all I'm saying. But you can always reach out to other committees, just gotta be careful, because we wanna send one message from the committee. Go ahead.
I know I send a lot of
No,
emails,
that's fine.
but I can put that disclosure that I'm not speaking on behalf of the committee, just for clarity.
Just so whoever's receiving it knows, is this a message from the committee, or is it from an individual? That's all,
Okay.
just for some clarification. Perfect. That's all I really had for the update. Reports of committees. So I'll start with 8A. Anybody here, were there any meetings that anybody might have attended? CIP, nothing? Okay. And David, by the way, are you on the CIP?
Yes.
And didn't we have another alternate member? No? Okay. School board representative.
We had I guess relevant indirectly to the budget committee, we had school board had about a 2-hour training last night. We had the State School Board Association lawyers come down, and I'd say we spent about 2/3 of that time on there's been a couple of changes by the state, RSAs, on the preparation of default budget. So they went over in extensive detail, pretty much what those changes are, and that's a school board function, that the preparation of the default budget. And I think that's, I'm trying to think, other school board business that,
Anything substantially different in terms of how you all are gonna have to approach things?
as it turns out, nothing, how we did it last year. You know, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, there was, as probably most people in this room know, there was a lot of discussion about the default budget last year for about 90 days. It was the most talked about default budget, I think, in the world. But the key thing is they want, which kind of happened last year by default, is that you have to have the school board presents at the budget committee public hearing, there will be a formal presentation on the default budget, where probably in the years past, people would read an article, and that was it. They'd mention it, and then on occasion, someone might ask a question. So you have to have a presentation, and it's got to get pretty much down to the level of detailed budget code that we had last year. So
at those meetings, we go over the actual budget that we've come up with line item by line item. So you have to do the same thing with the draft, with the
the default budget may not go as detailed as it'll go into detail, but you, probably the proposed budget may have more detail. But during the presentation of budget committee, I don't think you don't really get down to the nitty gritty of the detail. But they made it more formal, that you have to present at the budget committee, at the budget committee's public hearing. That's a big one.
And if I may, I think
Go ahead.
that was a very weird thing, because whose meeting is it? And that meeting is the budget committee's meeting, and then the school board's expected to
the default.
present, and then I think you guys sort of own the deliberative
Right.
in terms of where the assignment is and all that, and it's just a weird.
So now and that's why last year when it happened, it was misinterpreted. You know, when we were there, I was trying to give the floor to the budget committee, because based on my years in Atkinson, it's a budget committee public hearing.
I think by statute, it's sort of the budget
So-
committee that's where the.
So it's like, it's not really a school
Issue.
board thing. So now,
Yeah.
now, the school board, well, I'm sure the school board will be sitting there, but the default budget will be formally
Presented.
presented.
Yeah. It's a weird jurisdictional thing. It's.
Yeah, I think it actually fits nice. I think a lot of people want to know why the default budget is what it is, and it's actually not always a school board or governing body responsibility by vote, by warrant article. It can be delegated to the budget committee to develop both budgets, so.
The RSAs, and they said last night, the only people of any authority on, who can do the default budget is the governing, is the school board.
They've changed this year because.
That's what the RSA was last year, and that's what it is this year. So are you suggesting the school board could give that responsibility up?
No, you don't give it away. It's a warrant
You'll be
article,
there to-
and the
to
people,
defend- To talk about it.
you can put it to warrant, and if the district wants to delegate that authority to the budget committee, that's allowed to develop the default budget. It's a warrant article.
Oh, I see what you're saying, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
because-
yeah,
so-
it has to be voted on
Yeah.
by the district and
And-
by majority.
And that was, and they went over, because there was a couple lawyers there from, we met with them a few months ago, there was a training, and it happens a lot, where the classic, what is a one-time expense, and the debatable items happen all over the state. There's the two or three, what's a one-time expense, and what is maintenance, and so this isn't not just Timberlane unique, you know.
What can you share with us about the vacancy? Are they getting close to filling anything?
The Sandown vacancy, I think the Sandown selectmen asked to submit by today, and then they're voting on it next week. That's what I understand was posted.
Very quickly, there's no sound. There's no sound coming across the Vimeo, is what I'm hearing.
What?
Let's have Dean do a check.
So,
Testing 1, 2, 3, Dean. You got it? Kathy, why aren't you talking to your mic? Talking to your mic.
Can you hear me?
Sure you just didn't mute Brian?
Let me be the first one.
No, I just received a text message from someone who's
conspiracy.
watching,
Oh,
and
did
they
you?
cannot hear us.
They should turn on the volume then.
Dean, everything you know looks good?
Maybe they should turn up their set at home.
Okay. I mean, it is what it is. I just wanted to.
No, we want to make sure they can hear. Okay. All right, so they're on track for putting somebody in that spot.
Here you go.
Okay.
Yes, I'm sure they are.
All right, so that's it for you.
I just had one question
Yes.
for him. Brian, did you, you were at the strategic planning presentation last
Yes.
week. How did that go?
I thought, well, the presentation went well. I mean, it was pretty much Dr. Wilson, and she did a nice job presenting. There was unfortunately no members of the public were here to, attend it, which was surprising. I thought there'd be a dozen or so, but there was actually none. So so we, in the school board, formally adopted it, and so we're progressing. And we're gonna go into our little subcommittees now, and I think the big one that's gonna be in the works that involves the dollars, I think, is the capital one, So I'm sure there'll be people from, I'm sure, budget committee, it's gonna have to get a bunch of people there.
So we can expect that as these subcommittees get formed, they'll be looking for community members.
I think there'll be, yeah. So basically, I think right now it's pretty much, I think it's kind of like a co-chair, I think, right now, between Tom Gary and myself for facilities, and then we'll just see how
Okay,
where this develops.
you'll keep us informed.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to unfinished business. Under parking lot, we have facility tours. So Kathy Belcher took our input from our last meeting. She published a document. It should be out for the general public now and facility tours. So for the people listening out there, our facility tours are scheduled for 3 Mondays in October. It's October 1, October 15, and October 29th, all at 4 p.m. October 1 is middle school, high school, and PAC. October 15 is Atkinson and Pollard, and the 29th is Sandown North, the TLC, and then Danville.
So we'll meet at the middle first, then, and then October 2nd, we're gonna meet at Atkinson first.
I'm not, does anybody have the exact order? I know it's all up on the website. For instance, when we start at middle school, high school, PAC,
Yeah, that would, that would make sense, but if somebody's going to Pollard, we're all in Atkinson, that might be an issue.
in the past, we've always done the high school first, correct? So,
Either way.
So it's listed as middle school, PAC, and high school. Being it's listed that way, I would propose.
So the information is up on the school website for people who want to get more about it. Kathy, are we good?
No.
We're not good.
Another text from a different person,
Okay.
so, so no, we're not.
You can take a 30-second timeout, see if,
Want to reboot the system perhaps, would that help?
We are broadcasting audio and it's on TV, so it's a live stream issue. I cannot forecast if that's a 30-second fix or not.
Got it.
Looking at it now.
Yeah, so just
Do we
kinda-
want to take a small break and just see, and if not,
do you
then
know,
it is
Kathy,
just
do you know, is this cable TV or is this streaming?
live stream.
Yeah, so I
Live
don't,
stream has no sound from a couple of different people.
It could be as simple as a driver on someome's phone. I'm
Yeah.
not sure we should pause the meeting because
Okay.
of that.
It's two different people.
It's live stream, yeah.
There we go.
that's the
I mean, you can't have every meeting
Right.
forum.
We're recorded, so we're out there.
And it'll be posted to Vimeo.
But we will keep our eyes on this. Okay. So that's the facility tours. Under number 10, new business, so this is the beginning of where we're going to review budgets. I sent out an email. Jeff informed me that we're not going to get the PAC budget tonight. So we've got to have a little bit of patience on the PAC. But Jeff, you can share with us, you mentioned the PAC was not overly huge. It had, how many lines? 10 lines. So hopefully we can squeeze it
Digest that
into
quick.
another night. But
Yeah.
it's not a huge amount of lines in a budget like that. So, go ahead.
Jeff, are you able to articulate why they're not ready?
It's nothing nefarious, let me put it that way. It's nothing
Yeah.
bad. It's reasonable. But I am looking to reschedule for the 8th of November.
Can you just, for those who don't have the chart in front,
Yeah, I don't
what is
have
on
the chart.
November 8th? What are the
That
three?
is high school athletics, technology, and transportation. But I have,
Are there variables that you're aware of that sort of solidify between now and the next 7-8 weeks? Because it seems like a kind of fixed part of the budget program. I'm just curious.
it's not a lot,
trying to-
it's not really a huge part of the budget. It's relatively small. I know it seems large and encompassing, it's not, it's relatively small. But the one thing that changes with the PAC budget, if you will, is what the direction of the school board is with respect to the usage of the building. And so some years, there may be a preference for the building to have the direction or focus of school programming, district programming, or not. We're gonna have the public in, or not, the community in, or not. And when I say or not, what happens is we don't book, like, today for a cheerleading competition at the PAC for this weekend. We book way out. And so if there's a preference on outside groups, then they can book out 6 months. But if the preference is for district events, then we end up in a situation that we might have something that we'd want to hold for a district event that ties up enough time such that someone wouldn't be able to book from the outside. So I've seen it, go a little bit either way, if you will, and sometimes there's a preference to have it be district focused, have it be community focused, save it for district events, give that the preference, and sometimes the thought is we really want to have it generate what it can generate, and we accept that if we do that and we're generating revenue, that is disruptive to public's usage of the building and the district's use of the building, and that might be okay.
Okay.
So you're saying that the school board needs to obviously discuss this and provide them direction, so they'll be going before the school board with the budget and getting direction, or?
I think typically the
mean-
question was, is there anything that would be helpful or not in having them present a little later? And as that topic may come up in terms of what the scheduling is like, I think they just approved the schedule, the PAC schedule for the upcoming year. That discussion, I think, is helpful in guiding the work of the PAC. They focus on outside programs, they focus on district. And, that's something that as we move along, we may have an answer before they present. Hopefully, in a month, it could be something that could come up. I'd ask our school board rep, I don't know that I was there for that part of the meeting. I know that schedule was approved. Was there any discussion around that?
We just approved the schedule.
Yep. Yep.
So there is an approved schedule, so
There's
they
an
can
approved PAC
move,
schedule.
Yeah.
so they can move forward with the budget.
No, that doesn't impact, that's this year's schedule.
So
That
do you-
doesn't impact next year's schedule, and that's why I say next year's schedule is more guidance, direction.
What was the anticipated date, though, you had in November?
Well, November 8th, I have the high school athletics, technology, and transportation. So on the 8th, I also have transportation. However, staff will be presenting that, will be away at a conference. So I could move that up to the 25th, which is the middle school, Danville, and Pollard. I don't know the transportation's that.
So that was going to be my next question is, are the rest of the presenters that are currently scheduled on track?
As far as I know, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Because it's one thing, we can fit the pack, it's a smaller one somewhere else. But like, for instance, the next ones that are on October 11th,
Yep.
they're there?
The only thing to be aware of is that there are going to be some final meetings within the district prior to that time. And so it may be Monday or Tuesday until we're able to actually publish what their final proposals are, if you will, for the budget, for the agenda packet,
So what does that translate to for October 11th?
whatever that is.
No, are we on track?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess we just pencil in right now that we can probably do the pack around November 8th.
And would you be okay if we move transportation up to the 25th?
Let me see your schedule. Because I'm not sure everybody has a schedule in front of them. We want to move transportation. Oh,
And we have 3 this night. Well, we have 4 this night. Right?
so I'm going to tell everybody, on October 25th, we got the middle school and Danville Elementary and the Pollard, and they're looking to add transportation to move it up. What we can do is we can move it up if we don't get to it. But that does put the administrator in a wasted time slot coming here, but.
But they're not going to be around for the next.
That's correct.
their Next meeting
That's
time
correct.
anyhow.
Right.
And I don't want to leave it till the 20th, because I think it might
Okay.
be a busy night.
I think we could probably put them there and see how the week of the 11th goes with the Atkinson Academy, Sandown North and Sandown Central.
Yes.
And then if that goes well,
Yes.
we'll know if we
Exactly.
can probably squeeze.
Good point. So Jeff, could you do me a favor? Make a note to update that schedule and send it back out to us.
Can I include, as we've discussed, with PAC on the 8th? And then
Pack on the
and then
8th, and
transportation
you're gonna
moved
move
up. Transportation.
transportation up to the 25th.
Perfect.
Okay? Perfect. Just so we have an updated copy. Okay. So thank you for your patience for the PAC budget. Now on to the school board update on the budget. What are you gonna
What
give
are we
us?
doing? Are we doing, well, were we actually looking at their budget?
Buckle up, right, Brian?
Huh?
Or were we actually looking at their budget? Right here?
Yes.
Right here. I don't know if Brian's presenting.
I would, yeah, I was gonna say, Jeff, I'll be honest, the school board hasn't seen this, and there's a big ticket item on that
Okay.
doesn't make a lot of sense to me, so we're gonna hear about this.
Well, I've talked to the chair, and this was the direction to go in. Perhaps there will be some thoughts after discussion. Well, I can ask what the big ticket items are. Well, and let me just say, what I've done is I've combined, to a degree, the two committees. There's really not a lot of activity for either, so school board and budget committee budgets are here.
Jeff, just do me a pause.
Sure.
Give me a pause. I want you to just explain to the committee one more time, because you renamed one of the columns. Remember, you used to say the word diff?
Yes.
So just explain for clarity, so when we're looking at it, we're all reading the same thing, because I know David brought it up to me. For instance, you'll see the column, it says 1920 requested, the next column is 1819 voted. That voted means
Voted.
voted at the ballot.
Ballot.
And then the next one where it talks about, that's where it used to say difference, but now it's 1920 requested minus 1819
Oh,
voted.
okay, that's, okay, I was confused, thank
That's
you.
what used to say the word diff.
Yes,
It's just a
different.
subtraction. What Jeff
Okay.
did, correct me if I'm wrong, is he just put the actual equation in there.
It's
That's what I'm
fine.
guessing.
No, it makes sense, thank
Is
you.
everybody clear on that? Just to make sure that we're all,
On the
when we
same
see
page.
the word voted, what voted means. And we've talked about.
Say that again, what does voted mean?
Voted at the ballot. That's what this committee asked for.
For last year,
Ballot was only for a bottom line.
But that's what they voted.
but this is what's
But there's a
the,
budget that
but
gets
what the
to
budget
that
they actually
bottom
took with
line.
that
Correct.
bottom line and
Correct.
line items, that's where all the money's been spent.
So there's no encumbrances.
That's what we discussed.
Yes.
We didn't want the encumbrances because Jeff said there was only about a dozen
Dozen.
encumbrances per year. He could give us a separate report to look at the encumbrances if we needed to,
Separately.
or when we needed to.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything here that's impacted by
Am I
encumbrances.
on track with everybody?
Yep.
So voted means
Do that.
voted by the community members.
Passed, budget passed,
Right.
and this requested for 1920, and the differences.
Does your arm ever get tired? Go ahead.
Unfortunately, no. Get used to it. I have a quick question, because I watched the school board committee last week, and they did not generate this budget, and I would think the expectation is for the school board to generate the budget and make their recommendation as a board. So I'm unsure how this is coming before us today, like this, before the school board even has a chance to review it and say whether or not they think this budget's accurate. I mean, they should be, number one, I think, making recommendations, and per 3217, and number two, this is their budget, and they have not seen it.
So Jeff, what you did is you took the numbers from last year, brought them forward.
To some degree, yeah. Yep,
Okay.
and made adjustments. There's really not a lot here, with the exception of a few accounts. It's all pretty much standard stuff.
So let's do this. Let's walk through this budget. Because
it's-
some of it is ours, and some of it is the school board.
So is the preference not to go through the school board portion of it? I'm happy to do that.
Let's go walk through it. If there's any concerns that we have, we can feed them back through Brian, so he can take them back. But let's take them piece by piece. I'm not overly worried because it's not a huge budget, and I don't envision there's going to be a lot of big changes.
Okay.
So,
I'll look at the major, on page 1, the major function category, which is school board stipend, 9,200. I'll move down to the school board clerk. The school board stipend that's set as far as I know. The school board clerk, we have some clerking as well as some additional expenses that go along with school board or budget committee expense of $320. We have,
can you just back up?
yes,
School board stipend is up.
No?
No,
No,
it's
same
not.
way.
same.
The clerk,
I'm sorry, school board clerk, yes, that one's up.
they all are, the clerks all have increases,
$1,860 up, correct?
36%.
Yeah, so I was just gonna ask, can you just make a quick mention?
Oh, that it's up?
Oh, yeah,
see that
kind
it's
of,
up.
this is a budget.
Yeah.
We don't care about the ones
driving
going
factor
down,
for
you can keep
Okay.
those.
That's all.
So that, okay, so, well, and I did say that the first category, school board stipend was level, that's consistent.
Yep.
So under that 2312 function, the school board clerk, 6,900, that's up $1,860 compared to the prior year, or the current year budget. School board clerk, expenses of $320, I believe that's down $40 compared to last year's budget. The stipend for the treasurer, so the whole treasurer function 2313 is the rest of the page. You'll see that there's a stipend of $5,000 for the treasurer and the assistant treasurer. I think that is reflective of where that position will be with some additional responsibilities coming onto it. And quite frankly, I'm not certain that we had been having the duties of the treasurer be as robust, or the assistant treasurer be as robust as they should have been in the past.
So they're basically, their duties have expanded.
Yeah.
So we're paying them more,
That's right.
which makes sense.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
Could we get that documentation,
What documentation do you want?
that you're
That their
increasing the
duties-
stipend? That would be something they would,
So what documentation do I have? There it is. It's right there.
No, wait,
The
wait,
stipend
hold
is
on, hold on,
increased.
hold on, let me back up. So she's asking what documentation, so can you give us an example of, like, what you'd be looking for?
well, typically when stipends or people are receiving increases, it's in a description of why they're receiving it and the amount of money it's documented.
Well, in this, correct me if I'm wrong, Richard, but in this particular case, isn't this a matter of, this isn't even a, you're trying to give them, which the board talked about this and we never
Yep.
came up with a number. That, to give this individual, because these aren't, they're not like budget committee or school board members, so you really aren't expected to work for the dollar an hour, so when as we had trouble filling this position.
For $1 an hour.
So, and I believe, and I think they find, well, probably what you found, Jeff, there's more involved in this position, there's more hours involved in this position, so they might be spending an extra few hours a week, so I don't know if there's any job description difference, but it's,
I think there's a skill set.
Didn't we have somebody leave this position and we had a hard time filling it because she got paid so, the pay really wasn't there?
we had some issues, but there was actually started with a death.
Okay.
And then the individual who was our long-term, this gentleman, Paul Sullivan from Atkinson, so he was ill for some time. So this function was pretty much abandoned
Okay.
for months.
Right.
It was a series of trying to get this thing caught up. So
Sure.
apparently now it's caught up.
So
Well-
could it be that we're really not changing the description so much? We're realizing.
The
that
market.
They might have to do more work, so you're gonna put more money in the bucket to pay that.
That's right. And I think previously our assistant treasurer is still the same job title, but
So
had
to
not
your
had
point, Kathy,
the
you're
ability to
saying like
reconcile.
what documentation? There may not be a documentation saying like we're changing a contract with this person. It's just we may be requiring this person to do more work. If they get paid by the
skill set.
hour or by the assignment, there's more money to be.
Which would be something that's approved by the school board, so I would expect that to be available.
I propose, what if the job description never changed, the ability to hire somebody at the number that we had for that job description was not no takers, so we had to, pay them a reasonable salary.
I understand the concept and I
So,
understand
but, I mean, I guess
what's
if you're
being
looking
said.
for
I'm saying
a
that
description
this-
of the job, and basically, I mean, if the job description hasn't changed, just the ability to hire somebody has changed at that market, at that number, that's what we're, I think that's what we're looking at, correct?
I understand what happened last year. Somebody had passed away and somebody resigned, and
Mm-hmm.
it was, they did have to bring someone in, so I can see it may have cost a little bit more going through
Correct.
multiple people.
Correct.
However, if you're increasing the hours, then that would be in a job description, that the hours are increased. And Brian
is not-
just
it's not
said
hourly.
that it's been discussed, and Ben just said apparently it's been increased, but this is something that the school board
Well,
is
it's been a general
reviewing.
discussion. We
It
never
should be
got to the
minutes or
point of
something.
bringing it to a vote, moving it, the stipend from one number to, we talked about it, it never, well, as a matter of fact, that when we talked about it, and it's interesting that the individual who is currently doing it, hasn't reached out yet, you know, I think.
To
so there
read
was-
it, to re-up?
No, it's gonna re-up, but I think I think, there was, because of the dollar amount, I guess this was not the biggest thing that night, you know, that went on, and it just kinda, it was brought up, and we just kept as a board talking about it, so that there was some general discussion.
I think what
That's
we
all
did
it was.
realize, though, was that the role of the assistant treasurer is not someone to come in and sign checks when the treasurer is not available. The assistant treasurer should have the capability and the ability to be available to step into their shoes.
No question.
And I think that's a little bit different than what our compensation had presupposed.
So, but to Kathy's point, so, which we could do that, you know, if this is, as we probably should do that anyway. It's a stipend position, so the school board should formally decide what that stipend is. So what you're
Proposing.
What you're proposing is a increase in the stipend.
$500, so, look at, so again, this is the school board's budget territory. It's,
Yeah.
we're gonna put it forth as a proposal. I'm gonna try and push it through Brian to go
I will
get
bring
it on
it
the
back to
agenda.
the board.
Bring it back to the board and say, this is the comments from the budget committee.
So, I mean, is it safe to say that the school board can look at these numbers and change them still at this time? This is not the actual budget going forward, Brian? And do you-
I can promise you this isn't the budget going forward. We haven't got to the good one yet, so.
Okay. Okay.
Kathy, you all set?
So basically, yeah,
Yeah, and I guess that was my original point. We're going through a budget that the school board hasn't even looked at, and it's going to come back to us different, so.
I think they all will, though. You must have like first, you don't, when someone comes in front of this board, this isn't just finalized.
No,
Right.
it's.
It is not.
No, but you make your recommendations,
Well, I
and then the
understand.
budget
I'm just
committee
saying
goes
that
through.
I guess, I think it should be discussed, that's all I'm saying. So if stuff happens, and, you know, here we are, it's still in September, so.
All right, we're still on track.
are we? I think we're off track. Go
Keep
for it.
going, Jeff. You're on page 2, Tom?
Page 2, we have some annual meeting services, 4,000, budget last year 2, so that's an additional 2.
So just tell us again, so what are they doing with these annual meeting services?
So those have a lot to do with us getting deliberative, getting the budget committee public hearing out. That's a bulk of it. Getting the stage, meeting event staged and put together, renting the different platforms that we need.
How is that costing $2,000 more than last year, though?
Well, it costs actually, no, that's the voted,
Okay.
right?
But the requested is
The request is
4,000.
twice as much.
So it's $2,000 difference.
Right, but the expended was 3734
Okay,
Okay.
all right, got it.
in the previous year.
We had an extra meeting.
That's true.
Was that correct, Mr.
It was
Hughes?
3,000 and
So
then
what was the extra meeting
2,000.
for? I forget. Okay, yeah, so that's why the extra cost came.
3,000.
So
it's
this
been
year's
consistently
gonna be
higher.
tight this year,
What's that?
the 2,000 compared to
Yes.
last year.
Yeah, it's been consistently over. The last time we had that was what, in 15, 16? Yeah. I think there were noble aspirations that it shouldn't cost that much, and invariably it ends up costing that much. Annual ballot, report and ballot printing. Level, I believe, with where it had been, although you see that rolled up into the 6,500, yep, 6,500 level. Pretty self-explanatory.
So-
Great, Kathy.
I'm sorry, it's not necessarily level. It's level with what was voted. It's not level with what was expended.
Okay.
I just want to make that clear, that it's higher than what was expended year after year for the most part.
So going up, this, what, for instance, on the annual report printing, it's up, $1,700, right? You're expecting what, postage, printing expenses going up, et cetera?
Yeah, or we may use a new vendor. You're at 4750,
Do we know,
17,
or?
18, so I'm trying to predict what we spent last year, trying to predict what we'll be spending a year, from over a year from now, year and 5 months, 6 months from now.
I'm just going to go through this. So if we know what we spent, we don't have any definitive knowledge of why it would go up. I can see buffering and putting in a, like a small percentage increase, but so why the,
10% perhaps increase instead of,
Yeah, but 2 years ago, you spent 5,100. 4750, right? 45, but 2 years ago, you were above that.
In the 15-16 spend.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit of a, I don't say wild card.
Variance.
I think it's pretty hard to come up with that when you look at myself, if you're looking at something like printing, to be dead on.
It's tough too, because I think one of the towns ran out of ballots one year,
Yeah.
so that I don't think we're gonna be as,
okay?
as
Conservative.
close
yeah, I don't want to do that.
at the risk, well, it happened and it held a lot up.
Sure.
So I don't think that was our fault necessarily, I think we matched the town's ballots.
But you never can predict how long the ballots are going to be, because quite frankly, it could be 4 pages. It could be 2 pages. Guess what? That doubles your costs right there.
That's right.
And it changes cycle from cycle.
Okay,
Next slide item.
keep going.
Annual meeting supplies, 5,000, we had a spend of, when that's level, we had a spend of 3285, 3983 previously, 5,000 before that.
All right,
Annual audit, 47,000, that's level, no change, and that's level, I believe, with both 18 and 17. The spend was 33,000 in 18. I believe that's an consistent number. Legal fees, 140,000. Current budget is 90,000. It's a $50,000 difference. 17-18 voted was 80,000. 17-18 spend was 58.
That's why I called your office. That's my overall question on this budget. What is driving a $50,000 increase in legal?
Well, I believe, if you look in the years before that, the 16-17 was at 191,000, 15-16 spend was 100,000, and it really depends on what we have come up. I believe the 90 was just what was there. I don't know that that's reflective necessarily of what we'll be spending. This is a union
Yeah, collective bargaining agreements are up in 20, right?
collective bargaining year this year, and we'll have, I believe,
But we're
TSSU
talking next year's budget, though.
Correct, and
That's
we'll have
right.
TSSU next year. And, you don't know, I don't know what's gonna be coming up. We happen to have a good year in 17-18. I don't think we had anything like that come up. But
So-
in the years prior to that, you're talking almost 200,000, you're talking 100,000.
So we've got the first quarter under our belt right now.
Okay.
For 1920, correct.
And I understand that's the type of service that you can't just take a quarter and multiply it times 4. I get that. But we must have some kind of feel for where this is going as we're wrapped up the first quarter.
Well, we haven't completely completed the first quarter, but I can look at where we are on the expenditures. But it's, as you say, it's not really, it's not
Linear.
Because I
It's
know
not
that
linear.
Thank you.
just a couple hours ago, we just had a couple hours on here with a union, so I know that must be one of the line items, but I don't see that's not gonna go on, a lot, That should be resolved in the next few weeks.
happened a lot, I think, before. That may continue until things are fully wrapped up. I'm with you. That's all I'll say.
Let me get these 2 other ones. I get Phil, and then I get Kathy.
I know legal fees, as a line item, it's going to be one of the most volatile line items, period, because it's just one person, one lawsuit, one fire could, do away with everything. I know you're looking up a number, Jeff, and I don't want to distract you.
I am
but
listening. I can hear
That
you.
being said, is there anything over the last year or two that, like, you see the administration having to use attorneys or outside counsel for things that maybe in the past we didn't have to use it? I'm not trying to cast aspersions, and it's just a matter of like everyday business. We're having to go to attorneys. It's more of a litigious society. Healthcare is complicated. The union stuff. Is there something you can point to? Is just why we're dialing them more.
I will say this, that I do believe we are experiencing greater need for counsel in our special education area.
Yeah.
I believe that they've been more involved in a lot of our due process matters and things along those lines. I think that that is one of the, aside from the, I don't say the normal, aside from, okay, this is a CBA year, okay, this is, all that, that is one trend that has been accelerating quite a bit. And I think that it's fair for parent, it's fair for the district to have, to have proper representation in those matters, so.
Okay. Kathy, you had a question?
I do. I guess in general, and I guess this would be directed more to Brian, because this is your budget. So the school board should understand what they're requesting legal services for. That's driving this cost. This isn't the administration's, the administration doesn't have legal counsel. The governing bodies do, the SAU and the school boards for each district. So this isn't the administration's line, this is the school board's line. So I'm curious from your perspective, I mean, this means that the school board is requesting legal counsel.
Okay. Well, good, fair question. As you mentioned earlier, there was no formal presentation of this budget, and there's really, as far as I'm concerned, this is one of possibly two things that's on this budget that you'd question. Everything else is pretty stipends, and it's pretty straightforward, the school board budget. When I look at 17-18 expended, 58,500, and 2 years ago, 191,000. Year before that, 100,000. So something big happened in 16-17 that, well, we paid that kind of money.
Unexpected also.
Yes, yeah, obviously, but to Kathy's point, and this is why I called Jeff's office 2 days ago. See, when I got this budget, that is the thing that jumped out at me. So and I'm sure I'm the only one on the board that's going to want to know, like, what is the rationale? Now, we as a board voted at our last meeting to respread the money, if you will, and part of that, I'm sure, is where you put, Jeff, I'm sure that's where you put 90 to 140 in there, if I had to guess.
I will get that amount.
I think that's what but that to me wasn't, that was an attempt to make what the voters passed more accurate to how we're operating the district this year. Now, that being said, now we're in a budget season. I'm very confident that we're going to need a little bit more detail than a gut check to go from spending 58.5 to having 90,000 in a budget, moving up to 140,000. So that's not going to. That won't be resolved tonight. I'm sure there'll be some more questioning about that. So we'll just have to
Have a productive discussion.
fine.
Go ahead, Kathy.
I just have one quick follow-up, because it does seem extremely high to me. And this isn't even the SAU legal line that the district also pays a portion of. Salem is 50,000, it's a larger school district. Nashua, much larger school district, 50,000. And I believe Londonderry is comparable, and they're around 50,000 also. So I'm curious what is going on here with the same size district where we need much more money for legal advice.
Okay. Bud?
I agree. I'd like some more detail on why it's so high, but to address what you're saying, Kathy, I mean, obviously you can't be suggesting we make it 50, because the last 3 years in a row we would have run out of money. So
I think that maybe,
you're more curious as to the last 3 years why we spent so much. I mean, we want to fund it.
I am,
we
because
want to fund it properly, right?
we do. We always want to fund everything properly, but it seems that it just doesn't go down. And I see other schools and their level, they're increasing, but they're increasing maybe 10% per year. They're not increasing.
So why don't we do this? It's obviously a concern. It's really not a line item that we're gonna come up with the answer from. It's gonna go back to the school board. Let's give it to the school board, tell them to come up with a number, and they'll obviously have to have a justification. They'll share it with us when we get it back.
I appreciate it, because I'm sure that, like I said, I'd like to sit down with Jeff and just like even, break it down, of whether it's legal, special ed, legal, like, break it down 2 or 3 things, so you can see what's going on here.
Right. Okay. So is the plan now to just leave it as it is, and it's a note that when this goes in front of the school board, they'll review it and they'll make adjustments as needed?
I would presume.
That's fine.
I think certainly it's been a very nice discussion.
Okay.
I just have one more question on it. I don't know what other expenses pertains to. That was a question I asked.
Where are you?
There's 25,000, it's the last line. I have an Excel spreadsheet. So it would probably be on the last page. It's 25,000, other expenses, it's 2319,890 for a line
We
item.
want to jump ahead to that one? We want to let them do the
where
rest
are
of
you?
the.
Oh, I
She's
thought
on,
we were
she's on the
done.
last page,
We're just done with that one. That
Oh,
line item.
okay,
She's
I'm
on-
sorry. I thought we were done with the
Excel-
budget.
the
I'll
Excel
wait.
thing.
890, she's way
All
up.
right, I'm gonna let Jeff keep going, so
Yeah.
we were just at legal fees. Next one should be stipend for budget committee clerk.
5,000 voted, 3720, difference of 1280. Voted previously was 1,500, 1718 spend was 3360. And I think that's reflective of the number of meetings, the number of additional meetings that I would anticipate the budget committee will be having in the future. So, additional cost, we've got school district committees, 2,000, that's level with the previous year. In some years, we don't tend to spend it. In 16, 17, we spent 1159. I do anticipate that we will have some district committees coming up, which will probably have some expenses associated with them, particularly with respect to the strategic plan and the number of subcommittees that are going to branch off of that. Legal ads, 8,000 this year requested, which is flat with last year's budget, or voted, as well as 17, 18. Previous year's spend was, 17, 18 spend was 1244, 1245. This voted was a little bit, was higher. This is typically something that when we do have to post for legal and that sort of thing, we have to have money in reserve to do that. It has a lot to do with our year-end ballot warrants and that sort of thing.
That's a considerable
Jump.
number based on what we've expended in the past.
Yep.
8,000 compared to 1,200,
Yeah.
so.
I'm up for the discussion. We've been, I think, able to perhaps not spend as much because legal notices in the past number of years, as newspapers aren't making money, have become exceptionally lucrative for the newspapers and expensive. So to the extent that we have been able to not have to publish in a formal legal notice, we've been able to do so. We still are required to publish certain things, notices of meetings and those sorts of things. But the spend could be a little bit lower. I do see it decreasing, and as we've been trying to become more efficient with how that's used, is that overfunded? No, it's level, and if the committee made a recommendation to lower it, so be it. School board conferences, 4,000, that's level. 17, 18 voted 1,700. They've spent 2,000 previously. In 16, 17, the spend was 4,600. I don't know where they're at or what could be incurred this year, but we trust that you're already utilizing how much is good. Having folks come in, I don't know if it's any less or more expensive than it would be to go out. School board dues, the NHSBA, so that's level. Previous 17, 18 voted was 15, 14 was spent. I believe that we've even asked them to do a little bit more work, so I'm not sure where that's going to fall if it were to be in this budget. Other expenses, 25,000 for school board, that's level with where it had been in the previous year. 17, 18 voted was 20,000. 17, 18 expended was 40,168. 16, 17 spend was 15,698. 15, 16 spend was 26,784.
Yeah. Now, that is where we spent, when we had the consultants.
That's right.
Right? So there was $15,000, there was a transportation consultant, there was a strategic plan consultant, so there was like 15,000. We probably spent about another between $3,000 and $5,000 that we gave to the students on 2 or 3 trips. So that makes up, off the top of my head, at least 20 of it.
I'd be inclined to recommend that number match where it was at in terms of the spend, the 40,000, but I believe that I've heard enough both from, I don't know if it's been a firm discussion with this committee. Certainly, I think you're in favor of pushing some of the requests from the students out and taking that money and budgeting
In the schools.
in the schools.
Right.
And so I can't see this year being, so if that money is out for the different things that the groups come here to the board to request, then we're really getting into the projects that we did last year, transportation consultant and that sort of thing, and I see that.
You're gonna need something next year. Yeah, I clearly see there'll be some kind of architectural type person coming in back half of the year. You're gonna need some money.
We don't know
someplace.
what it's gonna be, but we do know that it's on the radar.
It's definitely on the radar.
Yeah.
So we'd be crazy not to have something there,
And so,
so we could hire somebody. But, and while because we're towards the end of our school board thing, and this is the first budget, and I think you and I, Jeff, had we'll call it a friendly conversation last year during the budget season. We know that Tim Blaine last year ran on just under 70 million. Every year you're gonna have, or should have, about $2 million of reserve in the budget. And there's no such thing as a reserve item. So you've got money spread. So towards the end of the year, you can't get everything right down to the dime here, because then we will have.
it can't be short.
Yeah, we could get in trouble real quick. So that's, I think, what happens with some of these things. If you see an $8,000 line item, you only spent $2,
That's how we get our 2 million.
which you need.
Yeah.
Just because when something happens, you're gonna, 2 million on 70 million is not a lot of money.
It's just, as long as there's justification.
No, I agree, but I'm
for
just-
why it's at that point. when you
I
look back.
agree, but it's almost like is the different, whether it's, because I know since I've been in the school, but I look at a lot at numbers and just to make sure, that you have to have some money different places here, because you just cannot run this
Reserve.
place, and you need some kind of reserve built into the system.
Well, this is a perfect example, right? I mean,
Yes.
20,000 was voted, 40,000 was spent.
Yes,
Money came from somewhere.
there you go.
Right.
There you have it.
Oh, well done.
Okay. So we need to get this in front of the school board, and so I'm assuming, I'll send Sue an email. You can talk, and I'm assuming Brian will.
I'll talk to him. I'll talk to him.
All right, so this was a relatively simple budget, and it took us a half an hour.
No
And
percent.
if it's coming back here, we need to now find a
Yeah.
spot for it in our
Correct.
schedule.
Well, we built that into the schedule, right, for extra
Yeah.
extra days after all of this, just in case? No, I mean, down here, Kathy.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, we did.
Yep, we do.
So, I do have a question. So, is this gonna happen with every budget? Because we reserve that time for department heads to come
Yes.
back in and request. It wasn't to go through the school board recommendations and then make ours, because we're not making any recommendations today on this.
Right.
Because we have no feedback. So we then have to make recommendations, review this again and make recommendations the next time
On
we see
this
it.
one here, we do. But going forward with the others, we can't do that, because we'll have to double up on all of our times.
That's what I'm saying. So the
Right.
rest are going before the school board, because I saw the agenda and they're not on it.
Hope Kathy's not directing the
Alright.
school board's business.
So, yeah, we can't control the school board. We
So-
only look at each department, right, on our own.
With school board recommendation per 3217.
And so if they give us a recommendation, then we can follow it. We can review it.
We can consider it.
We can consider it.
Okay, so then am I hearing that if they don't make a recommendation, then we can just make our own? We're not gonna get any guidance from the governing
So
body?
we'll take our input from the presenters as they come forward with the budget that they present us.
Mm-hmm.
And if the school board's gonna give us any input, we can consider that also.
At the same time we get the presenters, or when do we have to look at it
So
again at
is-
another time?
I mean, they could get back to us, maybe the week after, if there's something significant, and say, hey, there's something significant on this, we want you to review it. But and correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, there's no way we're gonna get the school board to set aside every meeting to go through, the same type of schedule we're doing. Their agenda is already set and booked.
Did nothing come up at training last night regarding school board making recommendations on
Make
budgets?
recommendations, but no, we're not gonna, we won't spend what you're doing.
It won't duplicate what we're
No,
doing.
we're not gonna, yeah,
They
we're
do
not
the
we're not
they do
gonna
the fall
spend,
budget.
we're not gonna spend, all that time. But what I'm concerned about from a budget standpoint, because it was a very minor thing here, because it's a very small budget, I don't think this board, if when a department head, or whatever the term's gonna be, a principal comes in, when I reached out to Jeff, just to have you call me, because it was that simple. I just had, my main question was about legal. That's pretty simple, really, to resolve. That's one point, one question.
Yeah, I saw you later on in the day, too. It was in
No,
the
no,
meetings all
well,
day.
I'm just saying, and unless I misread my text or email when I get back from the chair and from the superintendent, that to direct all questions through him. Now, I can't imagine a superintendent of schools wants to go through every single expenditure, because if he does, the budget, he can be just you and Dr. Metzel sitting right there, and then plow right through this whole budget. Because, I don't, when you people, when it comes in front of the budget committee, you're gonna need everything right then and there, because as you can see, like, something as simple as the,
Legal explanation.
we gotta work on that. You can't do this times 500, if, you can't, you can't have 20 questions on the Accent Academy, 30 questions on the, so, I know in the past, as I've watched people, you sit back and people come in and they do the presentation, and it's now at the end, the budget committee says, okay, now what do we do? You've got a group of people come in with their, we'll call it their little wish list, so the letters to Santa. Would like this. If it's capital, there's a 99% chance, and it's capital, anything major, it's gonna be put off until it gets part of the capital improvement plan. Anything curriculum oriented would go through the school board, but if next year's operation is gonna be across the board, which it probably is, how the district's currently operating, then you can make a lot quicker work of it. So I think I'm saying the same thing, just a little different here. And that's kind of how I think the school board's going to be operating. I'm not anticipating any big changes. I'm only one member of the school board for next year, how the Timberlane operates.
Concerning the presentations from the department heads, they're gonna make a presentation, they're gonna show us the numbers, we're gonna ask questions. We'll take this under advisement.
That's what we did last year.
That's what we did last year. But my question is, based on feedback I got from department heads later on, Jeff, what happens with those numbers? Because we only thing we got last year at the end was a full 40-page budget. Do you incorporate what they requested in their presentation into that 45-page?
Typically, yes.
Okay, because they need to know that. They didn't know that, as far as they concerned, they made the presentation of their operation costs, but they didn't know what happened afterwards. And I couldn't give them an answer because in fact, we didn't talk about it after that
So what,
last year.
it doesn't matter really to anyone at the table, but typically what happens is they will go through their budget presentations, there'll be discussion. Okay, do we want some cuts? Is there a director for this? Is there a director for that?
We make some recommendations based on that discussion.
Right.
And you may go in afterwards and say, well, geez, I don't really like that project, let's cut that out, let's cut this out,
No,
and
but
and it happens.
But we took it under advisement that night, and then the following meeting,
That's right.
if anybody had any questions, or I'll say if they didn't have any questions, then we pretty much adopted that budget.
That's right, and whatever was presented after the questions is incorporated into the master budget that we will see, in mid-November.
Right, unless there are any changes,
That's
correct?
not what happened. That's not what happened.
We follow the bottom line number.
Exactly. You
Which I like-
you
I
listened to
like
those
that.
presentations, then you did the bottom line number, and then I believe you.
It was 69 million, wasn't it? We tried at 69, went up to
Then you
71
turned to
and 5.
the business office, the superintendent, and said, what can you do for that number?
Yeah, and all
You
I'm
backed
saying
into
is, and I agree with you, and all I'm saying is that the presenters
Bottom line kind of
didn't
thing.
get any feedback on what was approved until much later. As far as they were concerned,
it
they
was
spent an
75.
hour with us, sitting in this room while everybody presented, and then we took it under advisement, and then a bottom line was created, but they never got any feedback on what was going on. And so my concern is that we need to communicate to them after they present what exactly happens next. So that if they have a problem with it, they can bring it up to their people.
So we really don't know what that budget's going to be until the committee really finalizes it.
That's right, that's exactly right, and I think they need to
But
understand.
that's what we did last year. We were going down that process,
Yeah,
and then towards the end, we kind of put all that work to the side, and we chose a different number.
Well, I think, we asked Dr.
Let me actually, hold
Go
on,
ahead.
and I'll get to you, because Kathy had her hand up.
So I think this is where I was trying to go with when we were trying to develop the budget process and having them come in and having a column for the school board recommendation, whatever level they want to do it at, and the budget committee. Because if we see that there's lines in their budget that are constantly underfunded, we should be increasing that line item. And if we see lines that are constantly overfunded, we should be decreasing that.
But you will see that in their presentation.
And we should be making those recommendations in front of them. We should be setting, they have a request, we make a recommendation. That recommendation becomes the budget and the bottom line.
Right there on that night.
No. It says until you vote that budget until pending further review. And then at the end of the budget season, we go through everything, people can come back, we missed something, here's the supporting documentation, can you put this in? And we vote to add it or not. And then that is we make the bottom line that goes to Warren. We generate the bottom line. I don't think we should ever be saying, this is what we want, go fix it, because we don't even know if that's possible. We should be setting lines and generating the bottom line, being able to defend that, whatever the number is.
it's a combination of the presentation, coupled the information on these spreadsheets and past history. And you can see from looking at the past history, if there's a wide difference between and we just happened today. It was a question, there was a big difference between what was being requested for next year versus what was being used. And then if we look at past history, there's all kinds of ways where we can see possible places where we could make reductions and not
Or
hurt program. And that, use that couple, use that coupled with the presentation to develop a proposed.
What you're saying is, at that night, like, so if the next meeting, we have, I'll say the middle school comes in front of us, they're presenting, right there in front, we look and we make adjustments, either the same, up, or down.
Yes, yep. And typically, yes, and then so you say budget, whatever the budget number is with gross and net expense or revenue, and you vote what you are saying you want that budget to be until pending further review. and then we can always go back to it. But we need to see the revenue that comes in, we need to see what they're asking for. Because we should be looking at revenue also, because that's a part of the budget.
we do.
Even though we have to raise and appropriate, at least the people know that, and I'll use an example at the town level, the plumbing inspector, we pay him a stipend, but he also collects fees for going out and doing inspections. So that budget may say it costs them $8,000, but he brings in $10,000 in fees. So we actually make money on that. So then people can see that the budget's really not costing us that much, even though we have to raise and appropriate.
So just put this in, go ahead.
Well, unfortunately, you're not gonna see those type of revenue lines, you don't have a lot of revenue like that at the school level. You're not gonna,
But we have kindergarten, we have full-time kindergarten,
understand,
part-time
but it's-
kindergarten.
but, I just think what this budget committee should consider, is obviously, we went through, a budget review last year. There was a reorg as a result of it. School opened. Now, I would think you'd want to know from these people, so what didn't get done, or what, it's almost like, so we know that it's running, it works. You've got, people, and it's, through the reorg, everything went down. We opened the doors. I don't know if we should be setting ourselves or them up for failure, saying, what do you need? To me, it's more like, okay, what isn't getting done? And I'm not hearing anything at the school level, academically, that's not getting done. So you're the high school, so you've got so many teachers, so what is it you're missing, and what's it cost to run this place? And I don't think, my brain tells me that they know exactly what it costs, or like staffing wise, and then the business office puts a number on it. So I don't know if we should be encouraging them to say, like more of a wish list type thing, because I think there's going to be a process from a facility standpoint in the works here, and versus a staffing standpoint. And I think this committee, because I know the school board's going to be aware of that.
I'm looking at our scheduled commitment with each of these presenters. If we just spend tonight, we're gonna hit an hour just talking about this. And we're gonna have 3 presenters next week. And they're gonna be a lot more detailed than what we just saw. So just dividing it out, if we gave everybody, a half an hour, 45 minutes, that's gonna make a full meeting night. And so, I'm just saying, so if you're gonna do this in 45 minutes, and we're gonna ask questions and start debating lines to go up and down, this is gonna be a challenge, time-wise. I'm gonna go with
Can we
Alan.
put an edict out to the presenters that we wanted less of a wish list and more of a reality, what you really need?
Well, I think
Didn't we put that out? I thought we did at the end, because we had feedback from the presenters that they weren't getting, that what happened to my numbers and why, because, we felt as though that we need to be more narrow-minded, I guess, more specific on what they really need, so we can make a decision.
It's not fair to them either.
Right.
They'll tell you what the real problem is.
Yeah, and that's what we should be discussing.
Go ahead, Kathy.
I think, and again, I know I keep going back to the town, but it works out really well. We do receive the budget ahead of time, and I did appreciate seeing the budget ahead of time, because I was able to send you questions on the budget. And if we receive the budget with the supporting documentation for some of the big ticket items, not the consistencies that we can see, this is what you need year after year, we have no question about this, but some of the big ticket items that we're going to have to say why, we should receive that documentation, because they've researched it, they've said, I need this, they must know why, they have to support the number. If we get that with the budget, it makes it so much easier when we come in, because we know what they're going to be requesting and why. So the town gives the budget and the supporting documentation And we're able to review that ahead of time, so when we come in, everybody's prepared.
I'm not sure if we're gonna get that, because, you know, if it said furnishings, you know, it's up 30,000. You want documentation that says we're buying desks? Is that what you're looking at?
They would do, if
Detail?
they, yeah, they would do it at the town level. If they needed new playground equipment for the rec area, they would bring us in
Can they
prices.
put it inside the line as a comment? Jeff?
Well, typically that's what they've done, and the
Okay.
question is, what do you give?
So, what's that?
It's a matter of scale. At the town level, you're dealing with a couple million, now you're dealing with 69. It's
Okay.
scale.
No, and I
They
do
have to.
understand that, and some of these lines will stay consistent, and there's not going to be a lot of question. We'll know whether we need to fund it better or not fund it as much as we have been, because there's a trend.
We can also ask at the time of the presentation, what's driving the change? Either up, down. Go ahead, David.
Well, dealing with certain things like capital, such as I heard furniture mentioned, that's a CIP item. They should have been, that should be put in, that should be part of the CIP presentation, that they are going to be furnishing schools and stuff, whatever schools. So it shouldn't even be in their presentation. It should be, what should be in their presentations is what they need for operations,
I agree.
period.
I agree.
And we should try, I like the idea of getting whatever their presentation is going to be ahead of time, so we have a chance to review it and mark it up and make our own questions based on what they've written. And then we can, when they come and present to us, we can ask questions, intelligent questions, based on being able to pre-read it ahead. I think that's really critical. And as long as they stay away, like last year, a number of the principals, for example, got involved in personnel issues. That really wasn't part of our bailiwick, was not our responsibility. And then they taught, one principal talked about the needs for certain capital things in the walkabout that we went to the school, but they didn't say anything about it in the presentation. So it's important that somebody said that these things need to be really focused, so that we're focused on what the topics and the areas of our responsibility only.
Let me get Alan, and then
Well,
I'm
not, just back on the clarification from the presenters, because last year, if I'm correct, I think we actually asked Dr. Metzel what he needed for a budget. That's how we came up with a bottom line budget. He mentioned a number of 76 million, or something in that scope. Okay, we were down at 69 million. It's, to me, I don't want to go buy a used car and have to go talk to the sales manager, come to the sales desk and say, hey, yeah, I'll do this for the, I want the presenters to come up with what they really want. I want that number to come up within reality of what we operate in the school budget under $70 million. We did 71.5, I think it was the number. So we have,
So the operation, what you spent just under 70.
right, but the budget was
71.8, something like that.
71.8, so we need reserve. We all understand that, how a budget works. So I don't want these budgets to add up to $76 million, because that's ridiculous. At that point, I will say 69 million, and we're done, because I'm not gonna put up with the game. I'm not playing the game. I'm done.
working with the presenters to keep capital out of their budgets, correct?
Well, I think that we have the capital improvement plan in place, and what you saw last year, I think was, I think one principal was a newer principal, had some requests outside CIP.
But I'm just saying, so what we don't want is to find out, like, there's a new roof, a new parking lot getting put into their budget because it's gonna throw an imbalance. We need to push those off to the side. That'll get decided under the CIP.
Correct, but if it's decided under the CIP, then it'll be in their budget. Unless it's in facilities, but it'll probably, maybe in a building budget. But, they may speak to it still.
Okay.
But the larger project, I would expect if they're facilities, will be in facilities.
Julie?
So where are we going to, there's no CIP presentation per se.
The facilities.
Is that gonna be facilities that same night?
When
Is
you
it,
expect
is that
the-
separate, or is it within facilities?
We have maintenance of facilities on the 20th of November.
Right, so I would expect that night, like, for instance, Tom Geary would come in, and he'd talk about what what projects they're planning on doing by location.
Okay, so he's going to present any of the items that would be on the CIP plan,
Technology.
all of those items.
It's not part of the facilities.
What is it?
Technology.
Not to technology,
Okay,
but
so
facility.
technology will be
On the
done on the
8th.
technology night.
Right.
If I'm not mistaken, the board didn't want a CIP presentation. Am I right?
But Tom could give us, on the facility, when he goes through it, what are the big projects that they're looking to do this year? And they should be following what the CIP says.
Right, but not to have,
No, we don't need a CIP presentation, but if the CIP says, look, we're looking to do these projects on these years, that's what he can talk to us about.
I think you
Would
have to
it
be
be
careful what you ask
possible-
for, though.
Would it be possible to get the report of the CIP of what they're recommending, of what they're foreseeing
I
it's
think
going
that's
to be on
I'll
the
see what,
facility?
I'll talk to them about, see if getting that report, getting some kind of a report.
In this year's budget that we have right now, you only have $500,000 in capital.
Mm-hmm.
And we obviously expended all of this year going forward. I'm just saying, so, I mean,
So that's
what Tom could show you
a drop
something
in the
that's
bucket.
$2 or $3 million. It's not gonna happen.
Not this year.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So it's like, it won't be part of your budget.
The last CIP,
I'm sure he knows what he'd like to get, but there's only $500,000 in.
That's
CIP
this year.
improvement.
That's this year, though. We're talking about next year.
Correct. So now, we're not asking,
For $3 million.
we're not trying to increase the budget by $3 million
No,
this year.
I'm not, no.
Because that could add up to $2 or $3 million just by itself, just some of those things. That's what.
We have to
that's what-
prioritize. If a
There you
CIP,
go.
if
That's why I
CIP
guess
is the most
This is
important
where I'm
thing,
getting, this is what I was trying to bring up, you
and
know.
we have to keep the budget within,
I would hope that major improvements are
Would be a
gonna be
warrant.
put off.
Would be
I would,
warrants.
well, you can do that. but
Oh, please.
I'd recommend it's gonna be put off as part of when you do your capital plan a year from now.
Well, that's my point. Did you do a capital plan to say, we're looking for this chunk of money to accomplish these projects? You put it out as a separate warrant article?
This year?
No. Whenever they determine,
Yeah, whenever they need it.
when they
Why are you
determine.
guys laughing? Because why do you, when he's coming in, you want the budget this year,
Right.
correct? You're not talking next year, the year after, right?
Well, you may
We're-
have some more
we're-
immediate needs than
But as
going
long
out
as,
a
you're-
whole
as long as you're not
nother
going
year.
over $500,000.
right.
No.
I'm
No,
not
we're building
understanding.
next year's budget, so yes,
The
that
1920.
yes, so that $500,000 is for this current year.
Correct, but
Right.
We're
We already
building-
have this current year.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to maintain those type of numbers again, that's what you're looking to do again.
spending 18, 19 right now. We're talking
What I'm
19,
saying,
20.
next year's, but when they come in, you're gonna be looking at those kind of numbers again for next year's budget until you go into a major capital thing. That's what I'm saying.
So what are you suggesting? I mean, we still want to know about them, do we not?
Oh, no, you want to know about them, but I'm saying when they're coming to do their budget, that's for the warrant for this March. Right?
Yeah.
So,
For next year's.
For 19, 20 budget.
For the
yeah,
1920.
but I don't see that coming in. I don't see that. I don't see us putting a $15 to $25 million project in front of the voters this year, this much. I don't see that. I see that a year, I see that the following year.
You're optimistic.
I mean, I'm optimistic. You guys, you think it'd be this year?
No.
Well, I also think that between the number of departments and schools that we have, to get to $500,000 on minor projects would not be very difficult to get.
I
to
know
that.
it won't be.
Just-
That's
That's
no,
his point. That's
no,
his point.
That's what my
I'm not
point
talking
is.
about
is,
anything major.
what
I'm
he's
talking
saying-
about
Okay.
if they need some new desks, new.
Yeah, that's
tables,
fine.
new
But I-
Cafeteria,
no,
new
he-
bathroom.
okay.
You're talking major CIP like structural concerns
Yeah.
and replacing heating
Right.
equipment. And
I mean,
that's
last
where we're
year-
at.
That's
What
routine
happened to the whole-
maintenance.
What's that?
That's routine maintenance.
Okay.
I
All right,
think.
we push some of that stuff off.
David, so can
Right,
you
so
work
that's
to get
still out
us a kind of, what is the CIP? What is the
And
plan
if
to
that
say,
was a
we
little
want to
more
accomplish
than
these
$500,000.
projects in the next 5 years?
Little.
well, that, yes, they can do that, but most importantly, I think, to identify, because of the shortness of money, what capital investments have to be made in order for the health and safety of the kids and/or to protect the property. In other words, if there is a funky roof on Pollard, we can't wait until 20 or 21 to fix a funky roof, okay? We had issues involving the furnaces last year, and we managed to figure it out. But, once again, that's a CIP planning issue that needs to be considered, and we may not be able to push it out until we can do the big bond, whenever that's gonna be scheduled. And that's what we have to identify. It may be simple stuff like furniture, but there may be other things that we don't know about that need to be, that can't wait until we are able to do a bond.
Oh, I agree with that, but
You know, and it may be more.
Yeah, well, that line item doesn't have to be
It may
$3
be
million.
more than a $500,000.
And you're probably gonna double your capital, every year we have warrant article of capital reserve,
Yes.
Yeah.
it's 250. You should probably put that up to 500,000 or 600.
But what we need to do is we need to get information on the CIP, which I'm gonna get you to maybe report on at our next meeting.
Okay.
And we need direction from the school board who says, look, this is what we're looking to do. You know, we're looking to get these projects done at this time frame.
Well, I'm sorry. We had a CIP meeting. Are we looking, is that CIP recommended we have a bond 2 years from now? We're all set till then?
No.
David's gonna get us the information.
That's what I
David,
hope it says.
I'm gonna put you on the
That's what I'm
agenda
hoping for.
for our next meeting to do an update.
I'll go with that. I'll vote for the.
So I will say this, it's, and to your point, Kathy, it's interesting is if we know that we have an opportunity for revenue, sometimes we have to have expense, and if we know that we're gonna get the revenue, we've got to budget the expense. And we may find that if we have $500,000 in capital, that we may have some opportunities to replace certain equipment that we have. And if we replace equipment to the tune of 100,000, 200,000, 300,000, perhaps we get 50%, 60%, 70%, 80% of that back. But if the bottom line is going to be 500,000, then we're going to have to attend to the little repairs, because again, we don't care. You made the point, and I think that it's valid, that the bottom line is the bottom line. It doesn't matter if we have an opportunity to get an 80% back on a project, and that's reflected on the revenue side because we're able to participate in an energy rebate, let's just say. But the bottom line is the bottom line, and people don't want to see 100,000, 200,000 more in additional expense, even if the net cost is only 20 to 40,000.
Well, I mean, I can look at CIP issues, as a return. If you spend now, you're better off spending now than, in some situations, than waiting, it's gonna cost you much more later. So, these things, we'll have to see what the CIP says, and I think we should fund that line.
Not even CIP, to the extent that we may have opportunities in the next year that we know about
Right.
for energy rebates.
Okay.
So we've had some
okay.
good success with a boiler project that we had in Plastow, recovering a lot of that.
Good. So we didn't know that, do we know that up front when we did that? Do we know we were gonna get a chance?
Here's the problem, we didn't, but now we do.
So, okay, so can we, going forward, is that program still in place? And is it gonna, what else we have out there left to replace, does that qualify, do those qualify for that same?
Well, and we'll find that out in the facilities, but my point was that if we do know about the program and our equipment does qualify and we have an opportunity to get 60, 80% back, we've got to budget that expense in the first place, but there's no tax impact except on that 20% or 40% contribution that we're
Correct.
putting in.
Correct.
But if we're looking at $500,000 in capital,
People see that.
we're going to cut it out. We're going to say, well, this doesn't make any sense because I know we're getting money back on it. I know that we're getting.
What's the lag time? What is the return time on that, on those monies?
Well, when you get the rebate, you're getting it contemporaneously with the installation, like in the same year, right?
Okay.
So it wouldn't be, it's not like, something we're getting year after year.
Okay.
I just pointed out, this stuff might be coming up, and it's food for thought, and it's difficult because
That's why we should hear about it.
we do,
We should.
yeah, we do have an
Definitely
offset.
hear about that.
We have more programs that seem to be coming through that we have an offset to revenue that we just can't participate in because we haven't got the budget for it. But again, when I'm able to budget and I know I
Yeah,
can budget the
but-
expense and I can budget the revenue, it's offsetting.
Exactly, so I think
sort of
that's
a tax
something that
bill.
we should be able to get on top of. That's something, especially if we're getting rebates, or we want to call it, not a rebate, but a fund from the state where we're being reimbursed, and it's going to get it back in the same budget year. It's really not, it's not going to net out, it's going to net out the 20% or 30%.
Let's just keep that perspective because,
Right.
right,
Okay, which is why
No,
understanding the revenue.
Mike's had enough,
offset
we're moving on.
important at the
No,
time.
so, with that being said, because we were talking about these presentations, so at our next meeting, when we have 3 presenters, we're gonna follow through with the methodology that we discussed. I'm looking, if you ballpark 30 to 40 minutes, we gotta stay pretty tight, pretty efficient, if you wanna.
Well, you're right. It would be here till 1 o'clock in the morning if we're gonna go
I'm just
line
saying.
by item.
All the hands popping up.
I was gonna finish it, but go ahead, Chica. Go ahead, Kathy.
No, I just wanted to mention, because I know that Phil made the point where I'm speaking town, and we are, we are quite a bit higher than a town budget. And the town meets every week through, we do have to, that's why I was trying to spread the budgets out, only 2 a night with our meetings, because I thought it was a little cramped. But for a budget of a town, and they meet every week, and they go through every single
Right, and we're
budget.
meeting it about 6 or 7 times.
Yep.
To do
So
something 10 times larger.
that's why if we come in with more information and better prepared, it will be more efficient.
Okay. Julie?
All set.
I was just going to say, when are the presenters, how far in advance are they gonna get us the information?
1 week before, right, Jeff?
With the exception of this upcoming, because I believe we're gonna have some finalization, we'll be reviewing that through a final scrub here in the district, a couple days before, so it won't be quite, it'll be as soon as I can post it, but it might be Monday or Tuesday.
So what we've
of
discussed
that week.
before is that we will have in our budget packets 1 week before.
Okay,
For the next meeting on the 11th, it'll be before, but maybe not a whole week before.
okay. If we, when we're reviewing that, if we have any questions that they possibly could get information on, in that week time frame before they actually present, how do we go about
So
contacting?
send them up to me,
Okay,
I'll pass them off to Jeff, and Jeff will get them off to the right person.
okay. Because
That sound fair?
if we have the information ahead of time, we all review it, we have our questions, maybe we can get some of them either answered or
Save
in
time.
the loop,
Right, so they know what's coming.
so that when we meet with them that night, we're not just looking at it for the first time,
That's the goal.
okay?
Hopefully.
Are we good on the budget?
Yes,
Crystal.
please.
I'm still hopefully optimistic that it's going to be a reasonably short meeting. Okay. Now we're under 10B, review of revenue and expenditures. We're still in the month of September for a couple more days. So we can't discuss September, it's not closed out. We did discuss July and August at our last one, but as I mentioned to everybody,
Beginning of the
if you
year,
have
no?
questions, you bring them here, we can answer them.
We do have vouchers posted, though. We do have expense reports. We have, I think, 3 posted
We
for,
do.
for September. So why aren't we just asking questions as they come through?
Because we're looking to do them as the months close out.
Okay. I do have a concern about some vouchers that are posted already, and I think
For
it's
September.
for September, that I would like to maybe have Brian bring back to the school board, if possible,
Questions about what?
about vouchers that are being paid on a contract. That it's the wrong amount. We're overpaying on the
Less.
yes,
You're saying we weren't
not-
getting the discount.
We're not.
Okay, so
What makes you say that?
I got the contract and I got the vouchers and the invoices. I can send you the information, but we're not getting the discount, and, it was asked that the voucher be sent back and resubmitted with the discount, but another voucher came through for another, 10 units, and it's still not at the discounted rate. So we paid 12,000, we paid for 25 units at the full rate, and then another, it seems to be 10 units at the full rate.
I thought in one of your emails, you wrote something that they don't provide the discount anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't matter, we have a contract, that's contractually
Okay, so listen, so
obligated.
here's what I want to do. The budget committee does not enter in contracts with Ceresk, right? That's what you're talking about?
That's correct.
Okay, that's a school board contract. So,
That's what I'm asking, though.
You're asking, and I'll ask. I'll make sure they get your email.
You can do that.
That's
That's
all
all
I'm
we can
gonna
do.
do.
Because we
I'll be
really
honest
don't
with
deal
you,
with
I'm not
contracts.
really concerned about the $400.
What we can do is just say, look,
Said one
that's as much as we can really get into discussion here is, there's an appearance of maybe not following a contract. It goes down that avenue. We don't deal with the contracts. We don't enter into them.
And,
They do.
well, let me clarify something. They do and they don't.
They do and they don't.
Okay, let me explain something to you. This just keeps coming up. If you think that anyone who sits here can fully understand exactly, if you want to spend 1,000 hours a week, then you can know exactly what a voucher is, what the source document is, this level of detail. I don't know, what do you mean?
No, I'm agreeing with you. I'm not, I'm sorry.
Oh, you agree? It can't be done. If you think that any person can come in and give that level of detail for every single document that goes through this building, I would have to go through I'd have to
listen.
interview everybody. It's
I'm
like,
not-
This is what I would hope to.
how the heck are you gonna?
Kathy brought up a concern about maybe a contract. Just take it back to the board. Do we still have a contract with Ceresca, and are they honoring our discounts? End of story. That's all we can do here.
That's all I've asked.
That's all we can do.
So I can take 1 minute and wrap it up.
You must know this answer before you even have to go
I
through it.
appreciate the fact that the school board has faith in the business office. That is very much appreciated, Brian. So we do receive a discount. It is in the contract to receive a discount. Sometimes Ceresc has, and this is not the first time, sometimes Ceresc has a hard time with their discounts, particularly if we have not renewed the membership. They bill when they bill for the membership. We haven't received a bill yet, so we've saved the membership fee. And when we pay that, we make it a credit. We get a credit back on the discount. I know that it's in the contract, doesn't require the membership.
Right before that.
Should they have billed us already? Yeah, probably. I don't know why they didn't. But when they bill us, then we get the credit back on that, and it's a lot easier to get after we've paid our membership for the year. That's it. That's all.
All right.
So was it paid? Yes. Was it paid without discount? Yeah, we have no problem. Once they actually bill us for the membership, they'll give us credit. Simple.
So here's what we can do. As far as the revenue and expenditure reports, at our next meeting in October, we can entertain more questions for what took place in September. So you'll post September as soon as it closes,
As close as
right?
soon as I can.
As soon as you can. And then Kathy, did you have a question about the enrollment reports? You mentioned that the enrollment reports you wanted to see by grade and
I
location.
think that's posted that way.
It is posted, and so it looked like everything was there that you were asking. I didn't understand your question.
I think that was, did I send that? Did I hit send? I
got it.
I'm sorry. No, I looked. I checked because I knew I had asked before.
Okay.
And I didn't remember something coming through.
So the enrollment reports, and Jeff, I just spoke to you about this, but should be coming out in early October, right?
Which show,
The October 18th enrollment report, so you can compare them and see the trends from the different years.
I'm sorry. I sent that in error because I did know that it
Not a
was
problem.
there.
Okay. On that, anybody have any other business? All right, then I will find you all on October 11th.
Actually, we'll see each other at the tours first.
Ah, there we go.
On the first, very
Tours,
good,
and
good call.
It is the middle school where.
We're gonna go first, okay.
Middle school first.
At 4 o'clock, correct?
T19 was requested. 1:45.
Make a
We'll do
motion
until
that we
after.
adjourn.
Could I do a plug real quick?
Oh, wait, hold on.
There's an event here at the SAU parking lot Saturday, Touch a Truck, from
Oh,
9 to
yes.
1. It's a fundraiser for Mealy's Meals. So if anybody, are tens of people watching this meeting, I just wanted to put it out there that we've got.
What is Touch a Truck? I hate to keep the music meeting going.
There's gonna be police, I'll have
Oh,
a fire
fire
truck
department, oh,
here,
nice. The
Tractors.
kids will love that.
tractors,
Yeah,
antique
that's awesome.
cars, different types of vehicles here for kids to come.
Sure.
It's $5 to get in. It's just a fundraiser.
Okay. Meanwhile, David, you had a motion,
I had a motion to adjourn.
and Phil had a second. We're all in favor, so this meeting is adjourned at 8:50. Thank you.
They say, Alan, you're